Hello and welcome to our Christmas episode.
Christmas in July. This Christmas, I'm going to have a Christmas in July in December party.
Christmas in July.
So everyone mark your calendars.
Are we going to touch on the Trump shooting or just kind of
nick it in the air and move on?
acknowledge that it happened? We all saw the video and that's that.
Yeah, wild day. Wild series of days. In a never-ending series of wild days. Here we go.
I know our job is discourse, but I just hate discourse so much of the time. We're looking at Mormon TikToks today. How do you feel about that?
Sounds better. A little palate cleanse, going back to a more familiar beast.
Yeah. The devil you know. I found it kind of interesting going through Mormon TikTok this morning because I feel like they're flailing. Like there's not a lot really going on Mormon TikTok right now, it feels like.
Oh, to even try on TikTok would just be asking to have your faith unraveled in seconds. I think most people probably are avoiding it intentionally.
Do you think that's... Yeah, because I specifically found the hashtag pro LDS TikTok, which seems to... I get the sense that they're being encouraged to like use that hashtag and search that hashtag.
At this point, it's pretty much people who are selling something or working for the church, like the Living
weird.
Scriptures lady who's just like putting out the dumbest apologetics ever.
Yeah.
And just being like... I'm getting paid for this. It doesn't matter.
I'm like, I don't know if Mormons are getting off TikTok or what, but I'm just like, really? This is your best stuff?
They're on Instagram. They're an Instagram congregation.
I mean, same, honestly. TikTok's
like been the best app. I feel like I've got the most like educational, informative videos lately.
It's like the worst for your neurotransmitters, but the best for learning.
For the neurons themselves.
Yes. It's like stuff is firing and wiring for better or for worse at the same time. Oh, fun fact, I did find out from Andrew Huberman's newest cannabis podcast that there doesn't seem to be any actual good links between cannabis causing schizophrenia.
Oh.
And
nice.
In populations like, I think they said Norway, or like Scandinavia generally, where cannabis use is very low, rates of schizophrenia are the exact same. Like it doesn't seem like when cannabis use goes down in a population, schizophrenia rates go down.
Well, I guess I've never thought that cannabis caused it, only that people who already had it would be triggered, yeah.
But apparently, basically just any stressor whatsoever can trigger it. So like active military service is known to trigger schizophrenia. That makes so much sense to me. Yeah, anyway. This isn't a cannabis podcast, but I just thought Andrew Huberman's new episode on it was really good. I feel like a lot of research has happened even since he did his last episode on it. So a lot of what he said last time already has been pretty debunked. Also, apparently, sorry, so much about weed right off the bat, but like indica and sativa is basically not a real thing in terms of effects, which I think people have been whispering about for a while, but... Yeah,
definitely whispers. I have definitely felt different effects, like some that's like couch lock versus some that's more active and engaging, but...
Well, the good thing for us, Tanner, is that we don't even consume cannabis anymore, so all of
Clean.
this is irrelevant. You mentioned apologists. Do you want to start with some apologetics, or do you want to ease into them? We can start with something more vapid, or we can start with the apologetics right now.
Do you want a kick in the nuts or a kick in the guts? You choose.
We'll just go in chronological order and we'll see what happens here. Okay. This appears to be just like a LDS couple that makes quaint little videos together. This is a nice entry point. Relatively benign-ish.
We're Mormons. Well, we're actually members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We're members. We got married after 6 months of dating.
We say frick, shiz, heck, and dang instead of cuss words.
I love how they're not allowed to say Mormons, so they're just saying, we're members. We're members. But it's like, that's not really the trend. You kind of need to say or say we're Latter-day Saints. The style guide would advise you to.
Please listen to the style guide.
Please, we beg of you to think of the style guide. Latter-day Saints.
The intern who wrote it, spent dozens of hours on it, so please.
It would have been funnier if every time they were like, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, that's like just built-in
comedy. By the end, they're winded.
Yeah.
We're members. We believe in the Bible, even though people don't think we do.
We worship Jesus Christ, not Joseph Smith.
First of all, the lack of any color or personality or any kind of individual flair in their home is just immediately off-putting. I realize that aesthetics and decor are not everyone's cup of tea, but if your only thing is a big giant printout that says Christ and then you got paragraphs of
Tiny
shit to read.
I think they're just going for beige mom aesthetic.
They are.
For me,
people think we're just the white bread religion, and we are. We say shiz. I do like the white linen blazer.
her hair is really stealing the show for me. I need her to be dropping her hair care routine. Maybe it's extensions. As everyone knows, I've long talked about the unfairness of Mormon girl hair genetics. Something's up.
They do look like an AI spat out like
They
a
do.
Mormon Utah couple.
People think that we're in a cult and that I have sister wives.
Two separate statements there.
We're not a cult. We're just a normal religion that makes you do secret rituals where somebody washes and anoints all of your body parts before you pledge your life to the church and swear that your tongue will be ripped out and your bowels slit and your heart torn out if you ever tell about what goes on here. Just before you take another sister wife. Granted, that was only for most of the church's history, but,
Yeah.
or, however, sorry, not most of the church's history, but.
They're super normal now. They've like combated all the craziness of the past by just becoming the most like sanitized, boring, stale religion known to earth. Kind of like how Germany really sort of like reckoned after the whole Nazi thing.
Yeah.
And now they're just like on their best behavior.
Well, sort of.
I'm not abreast of German
now they're
politics.
like pro-Nazi in the other direction anyway.
Are they going far right again?
Oh, well, they're just like squashing all protests about Palestine and being like, we support Israel to the point of like beating the shit out of anyone and stomping down any opposition. It's like, this was the problem to begin with, guys.
Yeah.
And I love we don't worship Joseph Smith. We just believe that everyone who enters the celestial kingdom will have to go through Joseph Smith to get there, as per the words of Prophet Brigham Young.
We just think the Sister Wives was okay when he did it because he was special. We don't worship him.
The 14-year-olds was only for the upper echelons to do like normal cults. It's not a sex cult for everyone, just the people at the top. We're just normal members.
There's no way to spread a church if you're not sex culting from the very top. The cult thing's going to come up again, Tanner, so we'll definitely be addressing that
Can't
more.
wait.
Members, whether church is at 8:30 or 1, we're still late.
We're from Utah. I got married in the Bountiful Temple when I was 19.
Is this supposed to be missionary work? I guess it's just comedy for whoever it's for, but...
I mean, I feel like most of the online, stuff that they do is for other members to be like,
Yeah.
see, we're being so strong. We're having our missionary moments, and see, we're dedicating ourselves to the Lord. And everyone's like, yes, this. How many people are actually watching this and being like, oh, wow, cool blank house you got there, cool blank expressions you got there, cool blank personality. I would love to join this church. It seems like an
6
easy
months of
time.
knowing each other before getting married at 19, I'm sold. Seems like a very sensible, wise church.
At least walk around a garden or something.
We do our best to prioritize Jesus Christ in our lives.
We're members. Ty served a mission in New Zealand, and it's all I hear about.
Oh, like we tried to prioritize Jesus Christ in our lives is like, yeah, I mean, you and everyone who claims to be Christian, right?
All you hear about is his mission that he served 10 years ago because he doesn't have any other experiences or redeeming qualities or interests, no personality.
Well, if they got married when she was 19, maybe he was like 21, 22. So it's like he didn't really have much life experience before getting married.
Sure.
So what he can tell stories from school or he can tell stories from his mission.
That's how they get
And then
you.
she's been there for the rest of it. So
How old is she now? 19 and a half?
she looks like maybe 25, if I had to guess. I don't know, though. Those are the Metcalfs. Oh, they're actually like a really big account. They have 250,000 followers. Let's watch another one from them.
Oh, I thought he was going to do a backflip.
That's pretty good. Come on.
In what way?
I don't know. I couldn't pull off that kind of transition. I don't know how they did that. I'm impressed. It's
We should go see a
creative.
magic show together. You'd love it. Oh, it's not...
Oh, I
Did you-
guess there's a hand in there.
Did you see the Onion headline today? It was like, reports finds that all your problems will go away if you just go to church. If you just buy wholesale into all of their philosophies without thinking about it, God will bless you and take away all your problems.
That one we just watched had 17 million views. This next one has 7 million. Oh. Asking my wife if I'm the reason she's mad.
Am I the problem?
Of course you are! Hate to be Mormon, but where are the garments?
She looks like she's just come from the gym, if I had to guess.
Is there rules in the scriptures about not having to change back into your garments when you get back from the gym? I didn't realize we were so flexible with the
Maybe
rules
she doesn't
now.
want to sully her garments with sweat.
With dishwashing and other maternal chores and duties.
Their bio is marriage, humor, ODS. I'm kind of fascinated by them.
She says she met me on the tour. She keeps knocking on my door. She won't leave.
What is up with
I
this?
like her.
What is up with this influencer blank ass
Okay,
household? I
yeah,
don't
but
get
for
it.
rich ass house, look how tall those ceilings are. That's like Justin and Hailey Bieber level high ceilings.
No, that's a Draper.
I know in Utah it's more affordable, but just obscenely high.
Why? For what? To fill it with white?
I know. I'm like, why don't you just
Off-white?
like pay a bunch more for your energy bills? Like, you're never going to need to go that high up. Maybe they have moon boots. I'm easily impressed by a girl who can dance, so I like her.
No, because we are deeply brainwashed.
It feels like the hoodie is a big part of their testimony in a way I can't figure out. They've featured those hoodies quite a lot.
Oh, it's probably their merch, right?
Oh, yeah. No, because I have the softest set of hoodies.
Even Jesus was rejected.
That's true. He wasn't. He couldn't preach in his own town.
He is just like us, the man who had not a home nor where to lay his head, the man who said, give all you have, sell all you have, and give to the poor. He's exactly like us.
They seem innocent enough, though, don't they? They just seem like earnest believers.
They just seem like normal.
So far, I haven't
Mormons
seen them like hating on anyone who's left or anything.
Who, for them, it's like a social marker, but doesn't go that deep. Like, they're not like really concerned about whether it's true, really concerned about actually implementing any of the things that Jesus actually talked about. This is just tribalism. It's like, aren't we great that we belong to the one true thing that we've never questioned because we've never left Utah?
I just think when you're that hot, you don't really have problems in the way that regular people do.
Yeah.
She's got abs. She has got abs.
Yo, bro, who got you?
It's going to be Jesus.
Like
Jesus got them smiling like that. Oh.
My cousin took that picture, by the way.
Really?
It's a Mark Mabry original.
Never get used to this.
Nothing I want to do more than put on a Keebler elf costume and do cult rituals.
Mormons know how to romanticize the temple on social media because it is not like that at all.
No. God, a 10 p.m. session. Grim.
Oh, there's no way you're not falling asleep.
Oh, for sure. Right out. I mean, if you want a good ass nap, go to the Mormon temple. It will lull you into a carnal security that will leave you so refreshed, but also full of newfound shame.
Should we move on from them?
Yes.
We've seen enough.
I might enjoy the apologetics. I don't. It's like they're not making a ton of claims about the church.
Yeah, they are very much
I don't want to,
just
just shred them as people.
They do have a Christian
because they just
clothing
seem
brand.
like very normal ass Mormons, and most Mormons are, relatively nice on the exterior. Sure, their whole worldview is based in shame, manipulation, and lies, but they'll be very nice about it. They'll even bring you cookies when you're sick, or
This couple's not eating
maybe.
cookies, I tell you that. They are keeping it tight. Okay. This girl's one I just thought was interesting. As is typical among LDS people, a lot of the content is just about how persecuted they are and how people who leave, suck or are disrespectful is kind of the vibe that we'll watch.
I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church. And this past weekend, we had what we call General Conference. And basically what this is our leaders speak to us. They give us advice. They give us revelation that they've received from God. Just
cite one single revelation ever given in General Conference.
In your
dare
lifetime.
you.
Yeah.
In your parents' life, it's not out there. They're not giving revelation. They're just being
They're just giving vibes.
the Lord has spoken in 600 BC. Okay, great.
Really well said, Tan.
just about things that they feel like they need to share with us. On my feed, I see a lot of ex-Mormon TikTok.
I love when people give me revelations about things they need to share with me. I just got this little revelation. God just whispered in my little ear and told me a little something for you. It's has nothing to do with my own projections or worldview or the beliefs that I have inherited or my need to dictate to other people. It's just God speaking through me as I am just such a chosen vessel.
I see a lot of ex-Mormon TikTok.
A lot of ex-Mormon TikTok on her feed. What can we deduce?
Honestly, it doesn't affect my faith because I know what I believe, but it does.
I believe that a prophet has the right to marry 14-year-olds, the right to send their parents away on mission, take them into their home, and then marry them. I fully believe that. I believe that black people really are the cursed seed of Cain, and that they were not allowed to have the priesthood due to their unworthiness before the premortality. And I also believe however many millions of species of animals fit on Noah's Ark, and I will not be taking questions about that at this time.
Excerpts from what we call General Conference, and it's basically where church leaders will just kind of stand in front of the
The most aggressive whispering you can imagine. Again, great place to take an awesome nap.
You're on one today.
I'm on one today.
I like it. We're good cop, bad copping in the reverse. I like when we switch.
Hurt my feelings in certain ways. I believe that in life, everyone should be able to believe and to do what they want.
Progressive Mormon much?
Minus gay people who your church has constantly lobbied to lose their rights, is still lobbying to lose their rights. I just wish white bread, rich white people in the church would like care about a single other type of person in the world rather than just be like, we're literally so persecuted because people disagree with us on the internet merely for having cult-like tendencies, merely for trying to take away other people's rights.
You're not going to like a lot of the TikToks you're about to watch. I mean, they've been conditioned by the environment, like growing up in, white people aren't like different from anyone else in the sense of like how their brains are conditioned, but they have been like socially conditioned to be entitled and to like think less about others, dare I say.
Specifically Mormonism, which is like an explicitly white supremacist religion. And again, I say that without any degree of hyperbole whatsoever. Like Joseph Smith invented new scriptures with brand new instances and teachings of racism. They implemented I don't have to do this.
Yeah. Racist innovations from
Joseph like
Smith.
It wasn't like, oh, here's some cool, super cool things you didn't know about God, because of course we already knew about the 3 degrees of glory from Emanuel Swedenborg and the like, and all these other teachings that I've borrowed from other people. But what I'm going to give you something fresh, just right off the press, directly from
Piping
God,
hot
is
racism
in new forms.
There are a lot of people who were members of the church that are no longer members of the church, and I respect that they have left the church. A lot of things that I see on ex-Mormon TikTok are people talking about how they need a place to vent and they need their group to talk about all the traumatizing things that they've been through. I understand that this isn't something that you believe anymore, but this is something that other people believe. This is something that I believe, and I think that it's important to be respectful.
If you've been traumatized by the church, say sexually abused, and your whole congregation, including your bishop, showed up to defend the perpetrator and tried to silence you, then I just wish you would show a little bit of respect when you go about talking to people in your support group, okay? Because I actually happen to still believe that the church protecting child sex predators is true. So if you could just show me a little bit more respect, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I found her wording interesting there because I felt like she was like setting up to be quite like PC. She's like, I totally respect if people don't believe anymore, and like everyone has a right to not go to church if they don't want to. And then she was like, a lot of people, it's just them like needing to vent or talk about what they've gone through. And then she just immediately segues into, and that's not respectful. I don't know. It's like she was setting up for, I'm like...
Well, it's so Mormon culture. They've all been conditioned to believe that any criticism of the church or its leaders is bad, whether or not the criticism is true or deserved. That's like almost a direct quote from Dallin H. Oaks.
Well, and she even acknowledged that a lot of this content she's seeing is from people who are just wanting to like vent like to their group, aka she's not the target audience. But then she's like about to go into a diatribe about how people aren't respectful.
It's like going into a group of people, like a group of solidarity, where you know that you are not explicitly invited, you're not a part of that,
recognized
and then
that it's
already
not for you.
Attempting to like tone police everyone in there is unhinged.
Yeah, I would love to see an example of what she believes is a disrespectful TikTok.
Probably this video.
Yeah.
Try and think about the last time you saw a TikTok about another religion besides the Mormon church.
I can't bear it with this talking point. I can't believe they're still doing it. People are leaving all kinds of religions and talking about it. Obviously, you're not going to get a lot of ex-Muslim content on your feed. Like, you're getting ex-Mormon stuff because you're Mormon and this is like what you engage with. It's just like how have people within Mormonism not realized yet that people are talking about all kinds of groups that they're leaving, religious, businesses, like anything. People talk about leaving stuff.
Yeah.
It's really weird how they still seem to have this idea that Mormonism is the most persecuted religion. Like, it just isn't.
No.
It just, there's a lot of dirt you can dig up on it. So it is kind of an interesting one because it's new, and like the church has like been able to keep a lot of secrets by virtue of the fact that it hasn't been around for that long, and now now it's like coming out. But other than that, I just feel like we're talking about every sort of high control group these days. There's like 4 documentaries about the Love Has Won cult, and that's like so niche compared to Mormonism.
Yeah, it was like a Scientology documentary that made me realize I was in a cult.
Yeah, but there's not really a good here's why Mormonism is bullshit documentary just yet. In the
Yeah.
same way that there is about like
I
going
keep
queer or
toying with the idea of making it.
know.
Should probably,
needs to
but then I'm like,
happen.
ugh.
I don't know, maybe my algorithm is just different, so I'm just on ex-Mormon Talk and Mormon Talk. But honestly, I don't see
there's like an entire industry of like right-wing talking heads shitting on Islam. Just as for one example, like there's like constantly criticism of other religion. Your own religion was like, what did Joseph Smith say? That like the Catholic Church is the whore of the earth? Or
Yeah, I mean, in the Book of Mormon, and there's some strong language that may or may not be about the Catholic Church. Of course, some church leaders have specifically designated it as the Catholic Church. It seems to check out that the great and abominable church, the whore of Babylon, was the Catholic Church.
yeah, every religion is wrong except yours. I mean, yeah.
a lot of people talking negatively about any other church besides the Mormon Church. Honestly, all that I'm asking for is for the people
That just sounds like you're only talking and listening to people in the church or happening upon an ex-Mormon TikTok. Like, talk to anybody else. Every Christian, like right-wing
Yeah.
Christians are doing the same thing. Like, people are just trying to destroy
Ex-Christian
Christianity.
content is huge.
Yeah.
There are from all kinds of different denominations of Christianity, there's ex-Christian content. It's way bigger than, like, if we make a video talking to like ex-evangelicals, it typically will do way better than for ex-Mormons because the community is massive. There's so many people talking about it, thinking about it, watching it.
And again, the church is unique in that it is like one of the richest churches on earth.
Owns a fifth of Florida.
And they're using that
scary.
money, again, to lobby against gay rights, like persecuting other people in a way that Mormons aren't experiencing. Like, no one's trying to make Mormon marriage illegal or shut the temples down
Right.
or just investing, building malls, just not enacting the vision of Jesus Christ, of this is religion, undefiled, that thou will feed the poor. And I go on this rant every single time.
but I love it
It's like
every
there's
time.
reasons people are upset at the church using the money to defend sexual predators, to make sure that sexual predators in the church can't be held legally liable, aka making it legal for Mormons to sexually abuse children. Like, that's literally what the effectiveness of that law is, that the church has fought. Like, those are the legal battles that it's picking right now, not like to ensure safety for homeless people, to make sure that we have proper food and education for our nation's children. Like, none of that matters, but making sure that child sex abusers can walk free. So important for the LDS Church for some reason. Maybe it had to
Yeah.
do with the fact that the president of the church's son, named after him, Monson, who got fired for sexual harassment, got arrested for soliciting a prostitute, a sex worker, now works for the church's law firm where bishops have to report sexual abusers, not to report them to get them in trouble, obviously. It's to make sure that the church can make sure that they're not held liable.
Just this idea that because a group of people believes a set of absurd ideas and a set of ideas that are like demonstrably harmful, I don't believe we should have to sort of like respect absurd ideas. But it's just like Mormons are so trained to view even criticism of the system, of the teachings, you know, like me and you don't generally resort to ad hominem attacks on this channel, but it still feels like we're attacking individual people to like believers watching.
I do. I'm like, they're shitty blank
Yeah, that's-
house. How good of people
you
could they be?
did say shut up. You've been in a mood today, but you're not always like that. But yeah, it's just when you've been trained to just see any criticism of your religion as persecution, of course it's going to feel like they're not being respectful. But by your own definition of what this content is, it's people speaking out about their traumatizing experiences within the church.
Yeah.
So what about that is not respectful to you?
And the thing is, Mormons, we
And
kind
it was
of already
their
touched on this.
church.
That Mormons will say like literally the most disrespectful shit you can imagine. Just like, well, your church or your marriage
Like
is just
completely
pretend.
belittle someone's
like you're just playing
entire
house.
sense of like worth
And
and,
then I'm like,
meaning
I'm
in
not
life.
being disrespectful. I'm just literally sharing the
Your
truth.
marriage is just a
now,
scam.
if you say that it was wrong for my church prophet to marry children, now that's
Right.
just being very disrespectful, okay? Because everyone should just be allowed to believe what they believe.
I mean, there's a snowflake syndrome in Mormonism. That's
Big time.
yeah.
And you know, in all like underdeveloped personalities and cultures where it's like they recognize that they do have good intentions and good feelings, but they're trapped in a worldview that disconnects them from the reality of life and the shared humanness of everybody. So it's like, my intentions are all good, other people's are bad
Yeah, like most,
or misguided, or you only have a portion of the truth.
so much of Mormon leaders' talks and so much of like Sunday school classes and content that's in like the church magazines, they're so obsessed with the us versus them narratives, with what, demonizing people who leave, with just belittling like lifestyle choices that aren't the Mormon
scapegoating queer
way.
people.
Yeah, so to say it's obviously just like a complete blindness to the ways that like Mormonism is like deeply disrespectful to, and not only disrespectful, but like actively harmful to all these people. Whereas like,
but we say it with such a nice face and such tenderness in our hearts. How could you believe that about us?
And like, if you're leaving a high control group like Mormonism and all your family, all your community, your whole life has been Mormon, and you're speaking up on the internet about your traumatizing experience, like this girl is in the majority, in the sense that like those people who are having to speak up about it on the internet, who like don't a lot of the time have people in their real life they can talk about it, are like the marginalized people in that situation. Like there's never been any space for them to like speak about that.
I don't see a lot of people talking negatively about any other church besides the Mormon church.
That is just like, again, such a victim complex, like a superiority complex inverted, where
Even
like
if it was
nobody
true,
is talking about any other church like they're talking
so
about
maybe
us.
your church sucks the most.
Yeah, either
It's not true,
maybe your
but-
church sucks the most, or like, I don't know, Google something once, like be like, what are other people saying? Are people saying it? It's just like, it didn't show up on my feed, so I'm just going to assume that yes, we are indeed more persecuted than any other church in the world.
People who have left the church to just be a little bit more respectful on social media. You can talk to your best friend about the church, you can talk to your neighbor, you can talk to your spouse. But if you're going to talk about it on social media, all I ask is that you be a little bit more respectful.
I wish she would define what more respectful looked like, because she's just kind of throwing that out there. She's like, talk about it in private as much as you want, but if I'm having to confront it, you need to like honor my absurd beliefs in a way that you don't.
We can call apostates like fallen, lightless, degenerates, who
Carriers
have
of disease germs. Wait,
we can call gay people abhorrent abominations, filthy perverts, all the long list of things that church leaders have called queer people over the years. And that's not disrespectful, because it's just true. Okay, black people just were an inferior race who were cursed for their behavior. That's not me being disrespectful, it's just me being true. So when you criticize that, you're being disrespectful. Do you see how that works?
The tough thing with that whole conversation is like, yeah, Mormonism, for example, has a rich history of using extremely violent, dehumanizing language towards gay people. She's probably someone who wouldn't use language as violent and disgusting as has been used by church leaders in the past. So then she feels like, well, that's not my problem because I don't talk like that. Not realizing that it's still a problem that all these leaders did for so long and still do, and that like the policies of your church are still fundamentally homophobic. And B, she's not realizing like the trickle down impact of that. Every dehumanizing belief system or like bigoted belief system will rebrand to like fit the climate it's like existing in. And within Mormonism now, it tends to be a little bit more like white bread, palatable. You know what I mean? It has like the TikTok dance while being homophobic. I don't know. That it's still there. Like if you peer under the hood, it's still the same thing.
The fact that she led with the idea that ex-Mormons are talking about actual trauma.
Yeah, that was the thing she mentioned. And venting to their own in-group.
Would you tell a victim of abuse in the Catholic Church, like, hey, listen, you could just be a bit more respectful to the people who abused you?
You can talk to your best friend, you can talk to your spouse. It's like a lot of people leaving high control groups don't have a spouse or a best friend they can talk to about this stuff because it's a high control group, because the thinking is so entrenched and like tightly wound that there's not space in there with their LDS like spouse or best friend to have those kinds of conversations.
And so mindlessly hypocritical for a church that literally sends like 70,000 people your age to go knock on people's doors for 2 straight years of their own paid free marketing labor, just to tell them that their religion is wrong and everything that they're doing is right and that you're the one true religion on earth. So don't talk about like where people are allowed to share their ideas and their beliefs about religion. Like so hypocritical, so tone deaf.
And again, please define, like it's useless advice. Even if you're trying to like actually reach us, I'm like, it's useless advice. Like, what do you mean by more respectful? Like, please define what you're seeing, because you've just described people talking about their trauma and venting to other ex-Mormons. But it's like, what is it that you're seeing that is not disrespectful? So then we can actually have a conversation about whether, because is there content that gets made that's disrespectful? Sure, of course there is. But like, it's just like completely pointless to make this video. It just feels like she wants to just be kind of just like throwing a little bit of judgment and shade at a community that she clearly has no interest in understanding.
We're about to get some
You're going to hate this analogy. I fucking hate this analogy.
Think about it this way. If you were walking down the street and you saw someone wearing an ugly shirt and you thought it was the ugliest thing you've ever seen, would you tell that random person, a stranger, that their shirt was ugly? I personally wouldn't do that because I'm not trying to be rude to some random stranger. Just be a good human.
Now imagine, if you will,
that shirt, that sentient shirt.
Oh God.
A shirt is a benign object. A multi-billion-dollar church with enormous like social, political, financial power is not someone wearing an ugly shirt. A church that has peddled like homophobia and racism and sexism, none of those things are even remotely in the realm of an ugly shirt. Also, I'm guessing that a stranger wearing an ugly shirt, you've never personally been victimized by that shirt. Like, there's so many issues with that analogy. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, imagine, if you will, you see someone with the ugliest shirt you've ever seen in your whole life, and they're trying to take away your human rights and telling you you're a disgusting, horrible pervert responsible for the degradation of modern civilization.
Imagine in the state where that shirt rules, they have like the highest teen suicide rates of any state. Or I'm not sure what the accurate data is now, but it's just an absurd analogy.
Because printed on the shirt is "We cover up child sex abuse" printed on it. Yeah, I'm gonna take issue and comment on the shirt. I will. I'll be that guy.
Just be a good human. Don't be rude to someone over social media if you wouldn't do it to their face.
Okay, again, you already acknowledge that these are people talking to each other about a shared trauma.
Just be a good human,
and you're being
babe.
like, your first instinct is like, how do I make this about me? Why is them sharing their trauma amongst themselves? Why are they doing that to hurt me? I just wish they would take me a little bit more into consideration.
It's so like belittling that she started the video explicitly recognizing that a lot of people are talking about trauma they've experienced. And then the analogy she used is it's just like someone wearing an ugly shirt. It's just a like random opinion that doesn't have any impact on anyone's life other than the person wearing it. It's not like that at all. Also, like 9 times out of 10, when the people that say like just be a good human, I'm just like, ugh. It's like a cringe phrase for me. I don't know why, because I'm just like, first of all, we all have wildly different ideas of what we think it means to be a good human, and that's kind of the issue, is none of us can agree on like a standard for being a good human.
The church is like so arbitrary in so many of its rules that it's like they were like got together and like, green shirts are against the rules now. If you're wearing a green shirt, you are a bad person.
But extend that to like a bunch of different changeable and unchangeable characteristics a person could have.
Yeah, now it was way worse. It was like, if you have this color skin, you are bad.
Yeah, like,
you don't get the full blessings of the gospel. I'm sorry. You don't get a choice of the shirt you get to change in or out of.
I think like homophobia is objectively more of like a real standard we could have for like whether you're a good human or not than what speaking out about a harmful system that you used to exist in. Madness.
I would just prefer if no one shared any negative thoughts about the people who abuse them or the institutions.
Don't marry
that made them
kids.
suffer.
Just don't be a pedophile.
No
Just
one's
be
ever
good.
like, yeah, how come?
But that's disrespectful. Like it's so backwards.
If you get one thing out of this TikTok, let it be just be a good person. Be nice to others, be kind.
Oh, okay.
That's a really good point. Be nice to others. Just be a good person. I hadn't considered that.
That was very enlightening. Thank you.
I also just love like the self-aggrandizement in it. It's basically just implying that like she's a good person.
This
and
is
we
how
should
you be a good person.
And we as traumatized former members of this system should be looking to her for how we can be a good person, because she's got it on lock. And that's what she just hopes we take away from this TikTok is like, just look to me and kind of the vibes that I have. And just try and emulate that and never say anything negative about any of the things I believe.
I
Just be
love
respectful.
when people make videos critical of people for being critical.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're just doing
I know. I think I need to make a coffee before we continue.
Okay.
Do you want one?
Yes, please. Oh, I can't wait to live in a Christian nation. We won't have contraceptives or abortion, but we'll have lots of church funding so that our pastors can get away with sexual abuse and no one can be on TikTok to make disrespectful reels about them. The best part was how I stayed in the same key the whole time. Yeah. Few musicians can do it.
This one isn't really anything, but just reminded me of Mormon food storage as a thing that I had conveniently forgot about. I just started thinking about how interesting it is. Like, I think it's good to have some degree of emergency supplies, obviously, in our world. But when were Mormons instructed to start doing food storage? Was that like the 50s? Or?
It's been a trend for a while. I think in the like 70s and 80s.
They really pushed it?
Yeah, I think like Spencer W. Kimball was like, have a garden, have food storage.
But they were like, have a year of food storage,
Or
right? Like
2
a year
year.
was, yeah. And so just generations of Mormons have like died with like thousands of
Just
dollars
buckets of rice.
unused food storage. And I just think that's like so interesting with like the white privilege prosperity gospel of it all. Because I mean, there is a degree to which having like 1 to 2 years of food storage is, I don't know, this is like a dramatic statement. It's like hoarding resources. It's the mindset of hoarding resources.
Which is like from the lay membership to the top, right? They're literally sitting on $200 billion, just like being like, well, someday Jesus is going to come back. All the systems of the earth are going to collapse. The US dollar is going to be non-existent. So thank God we will have
We'll be
saved
fine,
all
though.
this money and did nothing with it.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, to have the amount of food storage that the church has told people to have, you have to have a designated room in your house to, like, look at this room. This is just like some pantry, but that's like bigger than some people's like living rooms, or, you know, like it's just like the privilege involved in being able to have 1 to 2 years of food storage is pretty obscene. And it just seems like it's such a common thing. Let us know if like your parents or you had food storage in the comments, but it just seems like so much of it just gets wasted. Like Mormons typically aren't that good at like cycling through it, because a lot of the time it's also just stuff that you would never eat on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, a lot of it just goes bad and they throw it out. And
So it doesn't feel like there's been like a sensible approach to it. It's just been a bit of like a fear-based, the prophet said to do it, so we'll just buy all this wheat that we don't know what we'd even do with.
which I wonder how much of it is like a church business or a church affiliate business that is selling
There's
all
so
this
many
stuff
yeah,
anyway.
there's so many businesses like that. I feel like we should maybe do a video on food storage, because I just think it's a wild...
We shouldn't just like prepping generally. It's
Yeah.
amazing to me how many preppers are in that exact like hoarder, fear, aggression mentality. Like I knew a guy growing up who, you know, has a hidden bookshelf and you go into the inner bunker and then he's got food and a shit ton of vodka to barter with people, vodka and cigarettes, and
I love
also a
when
bunch of
Mormons have that
guns so we
to
can
barter
fight
with.
people and defend the stocks. And it's like, you know how you could avoid all of your worst case scenario if you just like invested in making your own food with a community of people
Yep.
who are growing food and
Yep.
taking care of each other. Like gardening. I wish gardening got more of the
Yeah.
emphasis. And most of like the radical communists I know are just like dirt
Godless, yeah.
hippies who are just like
Yeah.
growing food and
I think that's what kind of bothers me about the whole thing, is it's like this intense, like wealthy, rugged individualist approach to a problem that, yeah, needs to be solved in community. We need to create like communal systems of like feeding each other and not just be relying on these like giant food conglomerations that have absolutely no legal need to protect us in any way from putting poison in our foods, or that's the overturning of Chevron, right? Like they can just do
Yeah.
whatever they want. Not
Yeah.
that they weren't doing whatever they wanted before, because like the food lobbying industry in America is already completely insane, and food laws in America are already completely insane. And now it's like an even less protection if you can possibly imagine. So that's cool. So this girl, Mimi, do you remember she used to do 3 Mormons or Saints Unscripted? And now she's kind of doing like now she's like a Mormon mom. It's all relative, like for Latter-day Saints. She's got a good presentation for it, like out of the choices that they have.
her eyeshadow looks great.
Yeah, she's
We
she's
got
really good looking.
matching colorful cheetah print.
Yes, so true.
I feel like part of being a religious young adult is that your standards and your values are very different than what the world values. We see the world valuing things.
I just love that she uses being religious in like this, you know, homogenous,
Generally
universal way.
speaking.
Like everyone who's religious has standards different from the world, as if the world also had like universal standards.
And like, so she says here, we see the world valuing things like money. It's like Mormons are the most money hungry group of people ever. Are you joking? They will happily outsource labor. Like every Utah business is just like outsourcing labor to a country where they can get away with just like no labor laws, cheap wages.
To say nothing of being the top state for financial fraud.
Yeah,
the second
I know.
being Florida and being like way behind. Utah has like so much.
I'm like, Mormons truly are the most money hungry religion
Prosperity
I can think
gospel,
of. Yeah, the whole
definitive.
thing. Look at every Mormon TikToker's house. It's like way bigger than they need. But then Mormons will be like, we don't care about like money and like the stuff the world values. And it's always like houses and cars. It's like, you guys have the biggest houses, the biggest cars, the nicest clothes. Like
the most, opulent temples. Your church leaders, rather than having like actual visionaries or moralists or philosophers, people who can like grapple with big issues, they're all like businessmen and business lawyers. Like that's what your church prioritizes at every level.
there is truly no evidence that Latter-day Saints care about money less than
the whole thing
world.
started as a money scheme. Joseph Smith tried to sell the copyright of the Book of Mormon. That's what it was all about. Like trying to scratch up some change.
While we're on this, don't be afraid to go to patreon.com/self on the shelf. We're reading Tennis Shoes Among the Nephites, and we rely on Patreon donors to keep the channel
We
going.
are 100% about money. We don't deny it, please.
Money. Minimum wage.
World's valuing things like money, popularity, success, appearance. And we're taught in our church that
You're describing Mormons.
Appearance in the state with like the most plastic surgery per capita. I'm not necessarily bashing that, it's just interesting. It's like you're not really like reading the room or looking around. You're just saying these things and not thinking about like what that actually means. Who is more appearance obsessed than Mormons?
They even know it. I know. They talk about it themselves.
Like your whole thing is avoiding even the appearance of evil, because appearance is the most important thing for you. So that's why we got to lecture people about the color of shirt they wear and how many earrings they have and what tattoos they have. Because if you look like a bad person, you are a bad person. It's as easy as that. You can always just tell the book by the cover. And any book with designs on it, like a tattoo, is obviously a bad book. Because, the house of the Lord, your body is a temple. And would you engrave pictures on the temple? I mean, I guess, the LDS Church engraves all of their temples and fills them with images. So I guess that analogy doesn't really hold up.
I don't know whether they still do, but the missionary handbook used to tell sister missionaries to wear makeup.
Fucking Emerald Ballard, wear a little lipstick. It's not that
your
hard.
fucking apostle guy was like, wear lipstick. Yeah. It's like, it's a nice idea, Mimi, but it's just like doesn't hold any water.
we should not base our worth on those things, that we have inherent worth.
We're taught to care about those things a shit ton and use them as markers of our worth, but then just like give lip service to the fact that we actually care about Jesus more than those things.
We're so obsessed. We'll make you do like hands, shoulders, knees, and toes so we can see if we can see any loose skin before you're allowed to come into our activities. Like that's how much we care about appearances.
But it can be so hard not to base your worth on the worldly things when that's what we're surrounded with.
This is a church that is constantly emphasizing worthiness and like the arbitrary moral rules you have, just the arbitrary rules you have to follow to like consider yourself worthy. But then she's here saying we have inherent worth. And it's
No,
like,
you don't. The prophet said God's love is conditional. You don't have inherent worth. You're not just like inherently lovable. You have to do what the church says.
my
to be loved
ex-boyfriend
by
used to
God.
say that too. That was his pet deep doctrine, was like, God's love is actually not unconditional.
Like, prove this. Do this without makeup.
Stop curling your hair. It looks gorgeous, but just...
Yeah, you are gorgeous.
It's
It's
not
beautiful.
giving Jesus. He
It's not
never
giving,
curled his hair.
Doesn't care about appearance.
Yeah.
And then we have the other side, which is within our church, we're taught to be like Jesus Christ, who was literally perfect. So it's feeling like you're not living up to that. There's always something more I could be doing. I could be a nicer person.
It's like they always keep you in this cognitive tension where you always feel like you're supposed to be more perfect, but always held in light of your shortcomings and in all the ways that you don't live up to the church's expectations of perfection, so that you're always needing them to give you a sense of worthiness and forgiveness so that you can operate under the mental duress they gave you.
Yeah, I know that the average member would say, well, Jesus was perfect and we're supposed to strive for that, but we'll never be perfect. But it's like, even having perfection as any kind of like goal that you're looking to is just like inherently dehumanizing and it's just like not in line with the human condition to be like trying to be like this imagined perfection. Like it's just gonna like cause shame and cognitive tension and not be good for you.
And perfection is such a just a false concept. There's no
it's made
such
up
thing.
anyway.
It doesn't exist. Like, what do you mean? That would
Transcend your evolutionary biology and like all that stuff. It seems to be part of the definition.
And you would have to assert that like every single action had a moral implication to it. But most actions don't. A lot of times there's just like competing situations with pros and cons on both sides. And to be like, he chose perfectly, it's like, well, that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, did he choose perfectly when he went back to Jerusalem to get arrested and therefore crucified? If so, did he actually technically commit suicide? And if he committed suicide, did he actually commit a sin when you think, it's like,
I never
what
heard
are you
that
talking
one before,
about?
Yeah, I think just that whole thing of ascribing good or bad to like every thought, action, belief, everything is just like, it's just fundamentally damaging. Like that's the kind of shit we're like on about when we're saying that Mormonism is just like at its core, that's kind of the name of the game with religion, right? It's like earning worthiness. It's all earning, you know?
We're being so disrespectful right now.
We need to think more about being good humans.
We do.
We forgot.
And I guess
Because of our nice cars and money.
we need to be more
that we're so
ashamed,
obsessed with.
I guess.
Thank God we have those Lambos though to give us self-worth.
God.
To be serving my neighbor more.
It's about having riches, not caring about
Yes,
them.
that's so Mormon.
I'm not good enough. And so it's the balance between not fitting in with the world and then also sometimes feeling like I am not living up to who I should be.
It's almost like the entire scheme is rigged.
To make you feel like an unworthy outsider who needs the church to give you a sense of stability, purpose, and worthiness. They have infected with you with the disease so they can sell you the cure. I don't know why I went full transatlantic accent for that. It doesn't make sense, but we're talking about Mormonism, so nothing makes sense.
We got a bit more from Mimi.
So one of the coolest parts about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is that we believe in a living prophet today. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about.
Now, he doesn't need to prophesy, have visions, or reveal anything per se. He just gets to tell us his little whims, and we take that as the direct word of God. Now, we can never distinguish when he's speaking as a man or speaking as a prophet. I guess when it's something you don't like, that's when he's speaking as a man, and when it's something you do like, he's speaking as a prophet. Your feelings, aka the Spirit, will help you discern that. Unless, of course, your feelings go against what the prophet is saying, then you're listening as a man rather than listening as a disciple of Christ.
It has been kind of absurd to see Mormons like shitting on Joe Biden for being too old, which obviously he clearly is, when like everyone that they look to in their church is the exact same. Like, you think Russell M. Nelson is more cognizant? It doesn't seem like it.
I think he's a little more cognizant.
You think?
Oh yeah, I mean he's not like stumbling over every sentence, forgetting where he is, and
well, the stumbling over the sentence has to be the stutter interacting with the dementia, surely.
Yeah, I mean help. Joe Biden is in no state to be running anything. It seems like Nelson can at least finish a sentence and read off a teleprompter.
Would you look at that? Look at these apologetics.
During Benson's decay, when they were literally just weekend at burning him.
Yeah.
That was...
They're happy to weekend at Bernie's, like old male leaders in Mormonism, I guess is my point. And it's like, Joe Biden's doing a lot of dark shit, but it's like the LDS leaders are exclusively fighting for bigotry all the time, it feels like. Joe Biden goes in and out with that.
Reaping those investment rewards. Yeah. The stock portfolio is truly divine.
Since we've been studying the Old Testament this year. In the Old Testament, we see so many prophets testifying.
Shout out to all the Mormons studying the Old Testament this year. No wonder you guys are in such bad moods.
Testifying and literally nobody listening to them. Like, it's so sad. Can you imagine them?
You see that constantly now. Like, any concert you go to, there's like 6 self-proclaimed prophets like yelling outside about God, Jesus, abortion, whatever. No one's listening.
And it's funny that, all throughout the Old Testament, the prophets are usually people who are living at the fringe of society who are critiquing, this includes Jesus, by the way, critiquing the institutional structure of religion that currently exists, whether it's the king or the high priest or whoever. And yet, in our day, it's the businessman at the top of the hierarchy who's the real prophet, who doesn't give explicit revelations again. We don't get that these days. None of that thus saith the Lord stuff that we used to think was so important. Yeah, we're the only church that has miracles and angels and revelations. We just don't really get them these days or get to hear about it so much these days, but it's exactly the same, obviously.
They should make a businessman who's good.
trying to do general conference and then having like nobody show up in the conference center. Anyway, this got me thinking about how lucky I am to be living in a period of time in the history of the universe that there is a living prophet and I know him and I can have the opportunity to listen to him twice a year. And since I have a
What's he saying? What is he saying?
He's being like, get vaxxed, cool.
Won't be doing that.
And all the Mormons are like,
open to interpretation.
talking as a man, speaking as a man, definitely as a man, not as a surgeon
Doctor,
or a
medical professional.
testimony of the prophet, and I truly believe he's the mouthpiece of God on the earth today. If some
For what? Like what? So if someone was like, I'm an accountant, God's only accountant, and they never showed me a single goddamn spreadsheet or talked about numbers at all, I'd be like,
Dream accountant.
Probably not an accountant. If someone is claiming to be a prophet and can't offer you one single word of direct revelation, what, man, I ask, is letting you believe, giving you such a strong testimony of the prophet, other than warm fuzzies that you've been conditioned to have when he speaks, but that is like no different than any Christian or otherwise religious denomination paying attention to their religious leader. It's literally physiologically no different whatsoever.
Well, President Nelson was able to enlighten the membership to the fact that people like me and you are just lazy learners. And before that,
true. We didn't know that
there
before.
weren't narratives like that.
Yeah, we were filthy apostates,
Right.
worthy
Slightly
of death. But now we're just
Lazy learners.
lazy learners.
And
That's a little
true
better
about us. That's
wow!
true
God
about
really
us.
speaks today.
someone were to ask me, Mimi, what are the last few things that the prophet has been teaching in the last few years? Would I be able to say that? And how have I actually changed my life based on what he's taught? We all sing, we think,
What's the answer? Is she going to not say?
thank thee, O God, for a prophet, and we're grateful for a living prophet, but are we actually fully taking advantage of his teachings by listening to him and applying them in our lives? For me,
How? What teachings? How? Taking advantage? How?
Imagine having a prophet that's so milquetoast that you could be like, wow, are we even really caring that much? Like, it's almost like she understands how lackluster he is.
And that it's
that
really
they
on
all
her
are.
to like self-generate
Yeah.
the meaning. And she's a girl with an attitude of gratitude, you can tell. And that,
You
if
can.
she ever leaves the church, is going to serve her well in like a more effective way, I think.
Definitely.
Because I'm like, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with the like, the prophets today are pretty shit, subconscious, I'm assuming. But back in the day, they didn't even have a conference center and no one listened at all. So like, I'm actually really lucky.
The people who stood up in the conference center during general conference to shout, the church supports, stop supporting sexual abusers, stop covering up child sex abuse. They have way more in common with every single Old Testament prophet than Russell M. Nelson.
Did Old Testament prophets care about sex abuse though? Doubt it.
Oh, no, I just mean,
Right, in
as
terms
far
of
as
like
like
the speaking up of it all.
Yeah.
Right.
When Nelson goes in and starts pushing down idolatrous statues that have been erected in the church building because he's like, it says no graven images. So boom, down goes the Christus statue, the graven image, the giant statues of Joseph Smith. Then maybe I'll be like, okay, he's got some OT in him. He got that
Joseph Smith was
old-fashioned
just, like,
testament.
Giant caboose in the statue. It's like was to believe that Joseph Smith was just doing these insane glute workouts.
Fully
I don't fucking buy it.
caked. How do you think he converted so many people?
one thing I've really tried to do is just build my personal relationship with the Savior and then also let God prevail in my life. Anyway, just
It's such a cop-out. She's like, how have I implemented these prophetic revelations into my life? And then it's like, I've tried to build my personal relationship with the Savior, which is like really just like personal vibes. And then she says on the screen,
And you could totally do without a prophet, and has been the message all along. So
after reflecting, my biggest takeaways from President Nelson are relying more on personal revelation. A prophet so good that he's like,
you don't actually need me, guys.
and letting God prevail in my life. I mean, that's the condition of modern Mormonism, isn't it? Just being like, what's he saying? No.
Oh, we have been so disrespectful. We didn't even pay attention to his last revelation that Mormon, every time the word Mormon is said, it's a victory for Satan.
Yeah.
So, the church's multi-million-dollar campaign, I'm a Mormon, he did reveal to us that that was a campaign inspired by Satan, essentially, which kind of calls into question the efficacy of the former prophets who, mandated it.
It's also crazy how they've just completely flipped the narrative of like, now that they obviously, because there is no even attempt at purported revelation coming from the prophets and apostles, her whole thing is like, After listening to the revelations of Russell M. Nelson, which he hasn't really said maybe it's just like be a good human. Is he even saying that? That was like Monson's thing.
It's just like love. God's love is conditional. When
Fuck
the church
apostles.
acts, it's just basically Jesus. And don't say Mormon, please. I'm begging you. This is my pet doctrine. I've been saving this one for years.
You have no idea how long I've been sitting on this. But her takeaway is just like more personal revelation. It's like, well, that never would have worked in the past. Like, I'm glad that you have to do that now because you now literally, the prophets are so shit. You just have to become your own prophet and then give him all the credit, basically.
Ooh, I was up to you to give the whole credit. I'm like, that could be a good prophetic model. You know, the guru that teaches you how to go without them. That
but
helps
it's
you
not that
transcend the
Russell M.
need for
Nelson's
gurus.
getting up there being like, don't like put your relationship to me above your personal. Like he's not saying that. She's just like, this like girl in her 20s or 30s is like smarter than him and is like more reasonable.
And could probably give a much better, more compelling talk, to be honest. Oh, our old friend.
Who is this?
He's the Unix guy.
Oh, is that
Jared.
That's Jared Halverson.
Jared Halverson.
Your generation is famous for the statement, I'm spiritual but not religious. But often I'll say, are you sure? Because based on what you've been telling me, I wonder if you've only been religious and haven't been spiritual. You've been doing the dance steps, but have you heard the music?
You've been doing the dance, but have you heard the music? Thoughts. First of all, just a fucking roast to be just like, based on my individual religious spiritual experiences that I've had, I'm just deciding presumably like 30% of people that might in your generation say they're spiritual but not religious, like you're all actually wrong and my experiences are more valid and telling of your reality than your own personal experiences.
Yeah,
that's basically the message.
True test of spirituality, of a more advanced, evolved, closer to God connection is your ability to be dismissive of other people's spiritual experiences.
I know. You're just belittling the experiences of like millions of people because your personal beliefs and experiences like have led you to like a different mindset. It's just insane. And but then it's like the music and then we're acting like he's like saying something really deep. You've danced the dance, but have you heard the music? And it's like, have you heard the music, Jared Halverson?
Yeah.
Have you ever danced in your life? You don't seem like
Don't
it.
look like a dancer, TBH. Sorry if people in the church have been too religious. It's not like they've been forced to go to 3 hours of church every Sunday, now 2 hours or whatever, and early morning seminary every fucking day, and mutual Wednesday nights, and weekend trips to the temple and service projects. Like, sorry, they got caught up in doing all the things that you're constantly demanding of them and always trying to live up to all these expectations and do all the little programs.
I know.
Sorry if there was too much invested in that. Like, grow up.
It's like Mormonism is the system that teaches people that it is just about like, again, adhering to all these arbitrary ideas about spirituality, and that's what makes you a spiritual person. First of all, he's talking to like an entire generation. Like, it is very common among like millennials, Gen Z, like tons of people these days since the internet and, like religion just being so easily debunked in certain ways, like would say they're spiritual, not religious. We now know from like scientific research that spirituality is just like an integral part of the human psyche. Like, the experience of the spirit is universal. And so we know all that. And he's trying to say, like, based on what you're telling me, actually all your spiritual experiences are bullshit. And it's like, that's how I feel about you a little bit, Jared, because I'm like, I feel like the Mormon idea of like getting more spiritual or a spiritual experience always seems to come back to the doubling down of like the us versus them, or the like we as a group are superior in some way, and maybe we have like, we pay homage verbally to like humility within that, but it's just not really real. It's still just like superiority complex as like a spiritual framework. And then I'm like, how can you possibly say that sort of like intense us versus them thinking is more of a true spiritual experience with like excessive focus on arbitrary adherence to just random rules that some dudes made up, is like more of a true spiritual experience than people that describe experiences of like feeling unity with every living thing in a way that they previously could never even conceptualize in their tiny little minds that have been like so conditioned by civilization, or like feeling this like deep relationship to nature that you like. How can you possibly say that stuff like that is just like, that's the silly stuff?
But you've not
never
checking
heard
the
music.
box of my 19th century cult, so you're not really spiritual.
I know, it's completely
You're just being very
absurd.
religious. Okay, that's what it's sounding like.
It's like Mormonism is the definition of like
religious, not spiritual.
Yeah, honestly, like dancing the dance, but not hearing the music.
Oh, totally.
And I know that because, we are both people that like put our whole heart and soul into Mormonism and didn't have anything close to the kind of spiritual experiences we've had since then, especially in terms of like how like effectively they actually like change you and impact your life positively and make you more loving like Jesus. And
I mean, that's the perfect test, right? Not that I'm like the most loving person on planet Earth, but I'm certainly more loving than I was as a Mormon.
Yeah.
And you look at the people who are speaking for the church, speaking on behalf of the church, funded by the church, Word Radio, the Apologists, Dan Peterson, all those people who are like trying to prove the church is true.
Mean all the time.
Yeah, it's like I've never been like, oh wow, that is a person possessing like a
Christ
spiritual
consciousness.
amount of love, like something truly astounding. I'm never like, wow, someone deeply converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ, who's like astounding peacemaker and someone who can really enact the deepest principles of the Christian faith. It's like always like people just being so dickish and dismissive and being like, you're just not the real spirituality. And I'm like, ooh.
But if you like look at someone like Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, or like Margie DeLynn, every time she talks in a podcast, you're like, that is someone who has truly tapped into like a higher level of like love and non-judgment and understanding and all
like
the
peace in their own being and that they offer to other people.
Yes.
That you feel
you can
it
feel
in their
it.
presence.
It's a felt experience of love that they are able to like transmit to others even, which is but then like you said, you watch Ward Radio and you're just like, these people are like not okay.
Like, that's not someone who's gonna like,
and it's okay to not be okay, but it's just it's not spiritually inspiring to watch Ward Radio. This is from the Saints Unscripted TikTok, which is like changed hands a lot, it seems, but
Word Radio adjacent.
Yeah.
You have to do something with these witnesses. They were either tricked, telling the truth, or they were liars. That's a lot of liars to round up and get to uphold.
Two?
We just
Two's not that many, and they're all related.
who have financial incentive, and they're all from the same area, and we're like the same magical worldview. Also, I love how he's like, they were telling the truth, they were tricked, or they were lying, and then he just immediately goes into the lying. It's like, are we just brushing over the fact that they were probably tricked?
Yeah.
When you say two, is that because there's
like Oliver Cowdery and Martin
Are
Harris.
they the only two that actually claim to have seen the plates?
Then there's the 8 witnesses who again are all like familial connections.
What's the difference between the 2 and the 8? I forget. It's been too long.
The 2 are just super special, and the 8
they super saw them.
Yeah, super. Well, not Martin Harris so much.
It's like, well, Martin Harris was either telling the truth, lying, or tricked when he said that he saw Jesus in the form of a deer, or when he testified that James Strange's plates were just as true as the Book of Mormon. So what one was it in that instant?
Yeah,
that's a lot of lies for him to be telling.
Meanwhile, watch them like denounce every single one of the wives of Joseph Smith who testified in the Temple Lot cases.
Yeah.
Like they were all just liars.
But women have it in their genetics to lie more easily, so that like
that's why they can't have the priesthood.
Like facts don't care about your feelings.
This lie for the rest of their lives, they suffered greatly.
This idea that people won't uphold lies for their entire lives, I'm like, where in human history are you getting that from? Like,
yeah, people do that all the time.
Constantly taking secrets to their grave. Are you kidding me?
Do you just think there aren't fraudsters out there?
Yeah. God.
Also, there are accounts of Oliver Cowdery when he was disaffiliated from the church getting drunk and being like, the Book of Mormon's hogwash, we fucking made it up. Like,
yeah, and Oliver Cowdery was just like, Joseph Smith shouldn't have had sex with that 16-year-old in the barn. That was fucked up. But that was just...
And some people say, well, they didn't want to rat on Joseph because then everybody would know that they were liars. It's a major obstacle in my way between me and the exit door when it comes to this faith.
Ha, is it? You're not going to want to learn more about the process by which Joseph got those witnesses on board then.
Yeah, look at any other religion. They're with people who validate it. I mean, you can see the James Strang is the perfect example where you have like a witness of the gold plates who then witnesses these and is like, true, just as true. Like, great, your credibility is
Look at
awesome.
any miracle weight loss drug. There's like 100 testimonials from people being like, this saved my life. Like
Elijah Muhammad, there's witnesses of him being carried up into heaven by the great spinning wheels in heaven. Like,
is the LDS Church actually losing momentum, or is this a lie that far too many church members have chosen to believe? There's a lot of...
Is facts and evidence a lie that people are falling for?
A lot of data to suggest the church is growing very quickly. Across the church...
His spirit voice is deeply off-putting.
Can we have like a Dan McClellan, let's see it then, for that? Because there's lots of data to show. Like all the data I ever see is that they're shutting down stakes constantly and like merging wards together. And like just because they're making new buildings doesn't mean the church is growing. I mean, their numbers are down by like every metric as far as I know.
I think they're getting more missionaries now, though. I've just remembered that little scandal where Elder Holland was like, we've been growing this amount, so menace, every week. In fact, we just opened like 13 stakes. And then you go and look and it's like, oh, no, the exact opposite is happening and just happens. Like, you literally just lied. Like,
yeah, you always want to believe that they're just like finagling the truth, but a lot of the time they are just like straight up lying.
Lying for
Especially
the Lord.
about
It's
the
old as
numbers
Mormonism itself.
And I'm like, you guys, like, it's almost, well, I guess it is something they need to lie about because there's a lot of prophecies about how the church was growing and they need to, but it's also like, I don't know, I feel like you could just like not bother with that one. It's just like an unnecessary thing to be worried, like just accept that the church is shrinking. And then also you'll see, I mean, all members ever talk about is how many of their friends are leaving. So it's a weird cognitive dissonance.
Well, the cool thing about Mormon prophecy is that when the church is presumed to be growing, it's fulfilling the prophecy that it'll grow and fill the whole world as stone cut out of the mountain without hand. But then if the church is shrinking, then it also fulfills the prophecy that the numbers will be very few in the last days and that many will fall away. So you can have your cake and eat it too in Mormonism.
It's not shrinking, but if it is, that's prophecy too.
As a whole, there's been a drastic increase in on-time priesthood ordinations. Temple recommends being granted increase in missionary
I feel like they're just getting a bit more lax maybe. If I've never seen this data, so I truly don't know if he's just spouting this off from nowhere, but they've definitely got more lax with temple recommends because they kind of have to now. They can't get enough temple workers. That's a thing I constantly hear.
All among the youth, continue to see an increase in membership. If you are of the opinion that many people are leaving the church and that it's struggling, you may be a victim of the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. The phenomenon is manifest in the false impression that something happens more often than it really does. This often occurs when we learn something new.
When we see data.
So here's an example of the persecution I talked about this morning. We get called a cult multiple times a day. And by any definition of persecution, this applies. But my favorite response when people call us a cult is by asking, what is a cult? Because I know, I mean, I can look it up, but I want to know what you think a cult is. It's interesting that every person has their own definition of cult. They give me a different definition each time. And I notice that their definitions fall under two categories. Either it doesn't apply to us because they're misinformed, or sure, it applies to us just as much as it applies to Moses and the Israelites, or Jesus Christ and his following in the New Testament.
I love when you talk about all the horrendous things that have happened since the beginning of the church, and people are like, if we're bad, then you have to say that Catholics are bad too, or that the genocidal maniacs of the Bible were bad too. And it's like, that's what we're saying.
The Bible is really not like the anchor point they think it is, of being like, well, you would have to say that the Old Testament was culty too. It's like, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
like,
also fake.
Humans
also
are wired for cult-like thinking, for groupthink. Yeah, this guy's really on the apologist train. Got a couple more from him if you can.
Sure.
Okay, so he's responding to, why would the Book of Abraham be attached to a random person's funerary text? A really valid question, I think.
Great question. I only have 60 seconds, but this papyrus is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy because this papyrus dates back to the Ptolemaic era, which is around 300 BC, but Abraham lived in 1800 BC. The culture of Egypt in 300 BC is vastly different than that of 1800 BC because Egypt in 300 BC has a lot of Hebrews and Greek. They would copy several texts into this single papyrus. On this papyrus, they had the Book of Abraham, the Book of Joseph, which was never translated, and the Book of Breathings. This is from the Book of Breathings, which is part of the larger Book of the Dead. This is a funerary text.
We know this through the Rosetta Stone, which disproves the whole original claim about the Book of Abraham, which is said, by the way, to be written by the hand of Abraham. Shut up with those apologetics.
His Book of Abraham apologetics are quite wild. I'm like, I just wouldn't even go there if I was a Mormon
These
apologist.
are all different books on the same piece of parchment.
But even though their names were swapped out and customized, the content of the Book of Breathings is the same, and is really important to their religion. So just the fact of, here's how you navigate the afterlife, here's how you pass through the angels that stand as sentinels.
Oh, that's a nice imposition of Mormon doctrine onto that. That's not what it actually says.
And so this is all just a collaboration of all these important looking documents from Egypt that the Hebrews and Greeks probably put together. There's usually one artist and one scribe, and they would take turns to leave spaces for each other, which is usually why they didn't line up.
I don't think that resolves the issues
That
with the
offered
Book
zero
of Abraham
clarity
in
whatsoever.
any way.
No, you're making up a story about how it could possibly be true, but that story undermines everything that Joseph Smith actually said about it.
This is him still in Book of Abraham. This person said, Book of Abraham has been disproven. The whole thing is bullshit, which, true, we know that.
Imagine you go to the library and you check out a book about gardening and a book about planets, and you tell your friend about what you learned from the gardening book. But, oh no, there's a house fire. The gardening book is destroyed. You return the planets book back to the library, and your friend says, hey, I thought you had a gardening book. You say, I did. It got burned. This is the book that's remaining. It's about planets. You say, yeah, but that book about planets has nothing to do with gardening. Yeah, because the book about gardening is the book I was telling you about. This is a...
Except there's not two books. You're making up these two different books that exist separately. This is one single parchment, one single document.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it went up in a fire, but
Joseph was
you're
like,
inventing
it
a
was
fake
this.
situation that is not like congruent with the facts as they are. That there was a single document, not like, oh, we had these two different ones and all of this happened to be destroyed. And although what's left is nothing what they said it was, everything that got destroyed totally was and would totally back
Joseph
us up.
said it was what he said it was.
book. So the Book of Abraham was burned in the Chicago fire. The Egyptian papyri we have remaining doesn't have anything to do with the Book of Abraham, because it's a different...
It's literally included in the Book of Abraham, as the Book of Abraham, with Joseph Smith's descriptions of each little piece and what it actually... Oh, shit, where do we
Is
go?
that not...
That's not going.
Resume.
Yeah, we literally have Joseph Smith's interpretation, his translation of each piece in that, and including in the other... Egyptian symbol where he's like, this is God sitting on his throne. Never mind his erect penis. So it's not just like, oh, the things that Joseph Smith actually translated from happened to get destroyed. It's like he translated that bit and another bit that have both been proven totally bunk. Like absolutely bunk. Total hogwash. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
All apologetics are so dumb.
Yeah.
It's like creating the most flimsy case for plausible deniability that undermines everything that has been said about it by the people who actually put it forth.
Papyrus. It's not the Book of Abraham. So that...
It is. It's literally included in the Book of Abraham with Joseph Smith's
So
translations.
crazy how there's always like a fire or like God took the plates up to heaven. Or...
Yeah, we can't see. Joseph Smith needed the plates so that he could have faith in what was going on. He had already seen God in Jesus Christ, of course, so like his faith was already perfect.
Yeah, but he needed to pick up on some vibes.
But not to actually use for the translation. They just needed to like be around so that he could channel it into the peepstone. But then nobody else could see it because nobody else needed to have their faith strengthened like he did, someone who had already seen Jesus and God. It makes sense if you don't think about it. The CIA has infiltrated my family and installed a US-backed cousin. Bro, imagine being a part of that LDS religion, a part being like separate from, but he misspelled.
That's what people say. Imagine being part of that Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or whatever it's called.
Imagine believing... It goes so fast.
Yeah. It's the creatine their brains work.
Imagine believing the words of others saying it's not true. That would be crazy.
Yeah, that's what people do.
Imagine not having the knowledge of the atonement. Imagine not knowing about the plan of salvation. And then I responded, imagine following prophets who married children. Imagine having to justify centuries of their racism against black and indigenous people. Imagine studying pseudepigraphic and racist scriptures that have been proven false by practically every branch of science. Imagine belonging to a church that still covers up sex abuse, commits financial fraud, and perpetuates bigotry. A short summarization of my every rant I've done on this video.
Imagine.
I can only imagine.
I want to see more from this account.
He's got other ones of him just like lifting and being like, I'm not gay, but being gay is super wrong.
So he's going on a mission in August.
Yeah.
He's young. His top pinned video, I love when an 18-year-old weighs in. Why was the priesthood once restricted based on race? Let's find out.
Oh, it's like, we don't really know. We have no idea.
The church has always welcomed people of all races. That's not true. However, there was a period when male members of African descent were not ordained to the priesthood.
And all members of African descent were barred from the temple and higher ordinances of the church, which are apparently necessary for exaltation.
And the prophet himself taught that the reason black people exist so that the devil would have representation on the earth. We don't know the reason for the restriction, but it was ended in 1978 after church leaders sought divine guidance on the matter.
I commented again and was like, we actually know exactly the reasons because the people who made the ban told us all about it. And it was exactly that racism of being like, we see that with black people are uncouth. They've got big noses, and this is because of their wickedness in the premortal realm. And because of the sin of Cain, they are prevented from holding the priesthood until all the children of Adam shall obtain it. They may go to the celestial kingdom, but they will only go as servants.
Yeah, it wasn't like one random article in The Friend. It was like every prophet and apostle for generations and generations was teaching those reasons.
Tell me you actually don't know anything about church history.
Yeah, bless
without
him.
telling me. I was 18 once and brainwashed too, so I feel ya.
I love these like imaginary situations of a kid being like, Mom, imagine if we were LDS. Like even in the imaginary scenario, they're not saying the word Mormon.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to say LDS either though. Oh no, he did a thank you for this country, Father America post.
I shared it on Instagram, but a post going around about this nation shall be free from all bondage and no other nation shall possess it as long as its land is, worships the true and living God, blah, 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 blah. And people have like drawn the American flag on it. Forgetting, of course, that the Book of Mormon was supposed to have taken place in Mesoamerica when it's convenient to use that narrative and would not apply to the United States, therefore. And also totally forgetting that the United States was built on bondage. Did you forget about slavery? Did you forget about Joseph Smith's long treatise on the ethical and spiritual appropriateness of slavery? And that the United States remains the country with the highest incarceration and forced labor rates in the entire world. We've never had bondage here. We're a free country, and thank God for the United States. It even says on the Book of Mormon in the United States. Shut up. I'm so done with all of it.
70,000 view reel. How do you deal with same-sex attraction being LDS? You said he's not gay. He's just kind of weighing in on what they should do as a teenager. Let's find out. Feelings of same-sex attraction are not a sin. That's not what they used to say. President M. Russell Ballard said, let us be clear, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints believes that the experience of same-sex attraction is a complex reality for many people. The attraction itself is not a sin, but acting on it is. Once again, that's not been the rhetoric for most of the... Okay, so that's... But don't act on it is sort of the takeaway there. Okay.
That helped. How? It's like, just simply don't be gay. It's that easy. If you find yourself being gay, just simply don't. Okay? I would ask the same of myself, of course.
Once again, I know he's a teenager, so like, it's whatever. But just when people do these like imaginary scenarios of what people might say or how they're being persecuted, but it's like no one's saying that. Like imagine being endowed. Who is saying imagine being endowed?
If saying that, they're talking about their breast enhancement surgery. I'm sorry, that's it. That's on a billboard down I-15 in Utah. Imagine being endowed.
That's a good ad. All right, I think that's enough out of him.
Especially
Hope his mission
there's so much
goes
music
well.
that we can't share.
I'm sure the mission will be just as enriching of an experience as he expects it to be. Oof. Do we end there?
Are you allowed to bodybuild as a missionary?
Yeah, I know. What's
Nowadays, it seems like you can do anything.
Yeah.
I saw a missionary just walking by himself up the street today on his phone, and I was like, wow, shit's got weird.
Wow, yeah. Well, if you'd like to support our channel, you can go over to Patreon, and we'll be reading Tennis Shoes over there. Tennis Shoes Among the Nephites.
Which is a true historical record. The only reason it doesn't seem like it's true is because the actual part that was preserved as a historical document got taken away by dragons, leaving us only with a book that was offered through vision to Chris Heimerdinger.
Chris Heimerdinger wrote 3 books. The book that you see today
is a
came from the belly of the...
Tribute to the
not
truest
the
book ever
papyri. This is just a tribute to the papyri that it definitely came from. Slay. Okay. Good times.
Great oldies.
Who's your guys' favorite and least favorite billionaire? Let us know in the comments below for a reason we can't disclose. We love you so much. Bye.